It's always really fun for me to introduce myself and say that I'm a NASCAR driver. People don't look at me and think NASCAR, but it's really cool to kind of see someone's reaction and kind of maybe be a little judgy or trying to figure out where it all comes together, and then to explain racing in terms that other people are familiar with, from the team building, from the overcoming obstacles. It's fun to be unexpected. I'm from New York City and I grew up there, and when I was about 10 years old, my parents were looking for an activity that my siblings and I could do together, and so we found go-karting. We went to a go-kart track about 2 hours outside of New York City almost every weekend from ages 10 to 15, and I loved it and I started winning right away, and by the time I was 12 I knew that I wanted to be a professional race car driver. I started in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series, and then when I was 14 I became their first female champion. It showed the racing world that I really had some innate skill and some talent. I think trying to make it in racing is completely relatable to trying to start a business. It's partially based on talent, partially based on funding, and it's an expensive sport to get involved in. And so I learned that I was going to have to make myself a brand and make myself attractive to potential partners and sponsors. When I was 18, I applied and luckily got into Stanford and really used my time there, partially for my education, but also to learn how to hold myself in a boardroom, how to make a proposal, how to illustrate what my ROI would be to a company. Every racer is a startup, and you have to think about the marketing, the funding, the brand development, the people you have around you. Your team is so important, and so it's really cool to take so much of what I learned at Stanford and to tweak the concepts a little bit to fit my narrative and what I'm doing. You know, I recognized early on that so many people I went to school with and grew up with weren't familiar with NASCAR, and I thought that, okay, well here I can be this race car driver who also has these other interests, who's also doing these other things that can kind of tie the non-racing world and the racing world together. And Stanford allowed me to have the platform of being able to speak at TEDx, and I was really excited because it was the first time where I was able to kind of tell my story with an academic twist to a large audience. And I'm learning now, 3 years later, how incredibly valuable that is. Hi, how's it going? Thanks for taking the time. I know it's been a whirlwind week or two. There's not really a normal day of work for me. Really, the consistent things that I do day to day are physical training, and that usually takes about 2 hours of my time. My manager, Chris Goff, and I talk very regularly, but a lot of it's spent making proposals to companies, following up on press. Sometimes it's taking interviews, but I also make sure that by the time I get to my evenings, I really try to decompress and just focus on something else, whether that's reading or watching a movie or listening to music. When I do that, I tend to wake up with much better ideas than I would have otherwise. So it's really important for me to have the balance of a productive life and a reflective life. One of the most common questions I still get is, what's it like to be a woman race car driver? And it's interesting because it's both good and bad, I think. On the one hand, any little success I have will be amplified. On the flip side, I think there are expectations that women might not be successful, or there's this assumption that, all right, she's not going to be great. Driver coaches have pointed out that the guys race me harder than they race other guys. And hearing my driver coach recognize that was really powerful, and it also shows the importance of having allies, especially male allies, in any male-dominated industry. But it's also so satisfying because when people don't expect you to do something and then you prove that you can do it really, really well, it's the biggest sort of great feeling ever, so it's worth it for me. I will feel like I've succeeded at racing specifically when I'm getting paid to race full-time. To be able to make my living racing cars, and my goal is to win at every level that I race at, so that would be successful. But I'm also really concerned with helping others and showing that I can pursue what I love and that I have the resources to overcome a lot of obstacles. And at the end of the day, if I've helped one person kind of go after their dream or overcome something, that's also really, really important to me, and I consider that successful.